An Inheritance to Die For is a pretty decent film. This is an Aurora Teagarden mystery from 2019. It's directed by Michael Robison and stars Candace Bure as Aurora. And interestingly with this one, while I did enjoy it, I feel like the final third just wasn't as interesting as the rest of it. And that's unusual because with these kind of films, usually the final third is when things are the most interesting, the most fascinating, because we start to find out who done it, as it were. And that's not to say I didn't like the reveal or that I felt like it was too obvious, because I didn't really work it out. I'll explain what I mean by that without spoilers in a moment. But I just feel like maybe things dragged on a bit too much, or maybe I wasn't that invested in what was happening. And I think perhaps the reason I preferred, let's say, the first 2/3 is because I had no idea who was responsible. This is about the murder Sally's aunt, and this happens at the wedding that Aurora goes to, and it turns out that somebody had put something in her drink. I won't say exactly what, but I was curious for several reasons, and the first is that I didn't know how anybody who had a motive would have had the opportunity to put something in her drink, so I was very curious about that. But also, there were several suspects who I thought absolutely were responsible. There were at least two suspects who I was so sure had both done it, and obviously that doesn't make sense because only one of them could have done it. They have very different motives, and I was so confident that it had to be one of these people. And actually, I obviously won't give away who did it or what happened, but I will say that things were maybe not that obvious, which is a good thing. But at the same time, I had suspicions, and I didn't have any answers before they were revealed, so I didn't really have a very strong opinion of certain characters. There are several suspects who I kind of thought, maybe you could have done it, but I'm not really sure why. And then there were the characters where I thought, yeah, you did it, but also you did it. And maybe a third character where I was kind of not 100% convinced it was them, but very strongly suspicious of that character. And ultimately, when things unravelled, I was pleased enough with the direction it took. I won't go into any more detail about that, of course, but it's not one of those things where it doesn't make sense. So I was kind of pleased with how the final third was written, but I just feel like things started to drag a bit as we headed towards the reveal. I think maybe they could have quickened it up a bit, or maybe made another shocking discovery. I don't know what that could have been, but there could have either been a more dramatic moment, or we could have lost a few minutes here and there, and it wouldn't have really made much of a difference. I definitely did enjoy it. I thought it was generally a very well-written narrative, very suspenseful, and I was emotionally invested. I did really want to know who had done it, what had happened, why she had been murdered, and as I said, there were some suspects I was pretty confident about, but even then I didn't know how they could have done it, or in some cases why. So it didn't give away too much. It kept a lot back until the right moments. And yes, the final third might not have been as exciting as I wanted it to be, but I still enjoyed it. It's still a good film, and if you haven't seen it, and you've seen the previous Aurora Teagardens, I definitely recommend An Inheritance to Die For. I recommend watching them chronologically. The stories themselves aren't connected between each film, but there are things that happen in Aurora's life that are better enjoyed chronologically, and some of them might ruin things for certain characters if you don't. So if you can watch them chronologically, definitely recommend it. But if you're just interested in An Inheritance to Die For, I'd still say it's worth checking out. Ultimately, I rather enjoyed it.